Well, happy Valentine's Day, everybody. How's everybody doing out there on this one day of the year when we celebrate love? Those of you who are in a loving relationship, you might just want to scroll on because we're not going to be talking about that right now. What we're going to be talking about is ghosting and being alone on Valentine's Day and the pain of having someone walk away without letting you know why. It's a painful thing, right? Unfortunately, I'm hearing it is so common right now. It is happening a lot. I keep hearing that word, ghosting, ghosting, ghosting. And if you don't know what that means, someone stops communicating with you without any explanation. You may reach out and reach out and reach out, and there's no response, no response, no response. And it's time to move in a new direction for yourself and be your own Valentine. So if you've been ghosted, I understand. Because I've been ghosted too, and it doesn't feel good. It hurts, right? It hurts deep. Where'd this person go? Why are they not calling me? Why are they not reaching out? You know, what I found is that for me, it really brings up a lot of old trauma. I lost my father when I was a child suddenly and didn't get to say goodbye. So when I get ghosted, it brings that right back up as if it's happening. Because what I know about trauma, as a therapist and an author and an educator, I work and teach about trauma all the time. And when we have early trauma, we reenact that throughout our lives in various ways in order for us to really go inward and look at what's going on inside of us so we can heal what we needed in the original trauma. Because people who study trauma say that trauma isn't what happens to you, it's what happens inside you. So what happens inside us when there's trauma is a lot of nervous system activation and fear. And if we don't have people around us that can talk to us and help us through it and validate our feelings, it stays stuck in our body, and then we reenact it all over again. It pulls the heart apart. So those of you out there that have been ghosted, I just want to say, I love you. And I want you to love yourself, because again, when I went back to that little girl to see what she needed people around her to let her cry and scream and wail. And she needed to say goodbye to her father, and she didn't get to do that. And so if you've been ghosted and you have situations where you didn't get to say goodbye to someone, write them a letter. Tell them, I've been writing letters to my dad and telling him about what's going on. Writing letters to my boyfriend who ghosted me and telling him goodbye and what's going on. And I'm paying attention to what's going on inside me. Now let's talk about the flip side of this, because of course as a therapist, you know I want to try and figure this one out, right? So, why does someone ghost? Because they have trauma too. There's a lot of trauma in all of us, and trauma is kind of a buzzword and kind of trendy right now. But let's take it seriously, because it's a real thing. It's something that is in our body memory that causes us to act in ways that we don't really consciously understand. When we push things down and we don't really address them, we don't really move them out of our body present time, then they stay stuck, and we're going to react. It's actually called reenactments of trauma, when we experience a similar situation over and over and over again. And this happens not just in ghosting, but in lots of areas of our lives, until eventually we go, wait a second, that wasn't okay. What do I need to do different to reintegrate and change that trauma story inside my body? How do I treat myself better? How do I show up for myself? How do I not ghost myself? What does that mean if I'm ghosting myself? I'm not paying attention to myself. I'm running away, I'm avoiding. So the person who ghosts you is usually in their own trauma, and they can't emotionally regulate enough to come and speak directly to you. Maybe there was a situation, they've had situations of trauma where it wasn't okay for them to be honest and tell the truth and speak up, and they were shamed for their feelings. Maybe they got really put down for asking for what they need. I mean, the most important element of functional families is being able to ask for what we need and to negotiate our needs. Most of us haven't learned how to do that. And so how do I go to you and say, you know, I'm really not feeling like this relationship is working for me? That takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of guts. And you know what? Those of you who've been ghosted would probably rather hear that than nothing at all. It is much more painful to live in the silence and the not knowing and the stories that we make up in our heads about what is going on. What did I do wrong? What is he or she thinking? What's the story here? I need to say goodbye. We all talk about closure. We want to say goodbye. We want to If the chapter in our life is ending, we want to read the last sentence, right? We want to finish the last paragraph, close the book. We don't want to just wonder what's the ending, what's happening, or then how do we write our own ending. So we have to make up a story. Well, I'm assuming that. And we just got a voicemail from a friend of mine yesterday telling me about a friend of hers who died of cancer a couple years ago, and she had been ghosted and never really got over the relationship where she had been ghosted. And a year before she died, he got back in touch with her and he said, "Hey, I just want to let you know the reason I couldn't communicate with you is I felt like I was not good enough for you and that I could never be enough for you, and I didn't know what to do with the feelings that I had for you." The good news is she got to hear that before she died. The bad news is she lived all those years without hearing that. If somebody's ghosting out there, ghosting anyone, my suggestion is pick up the phone, make a call, pull on some courage, do the right thing. And if you've been ghosted, if you're being ghosted, and if you're in that space of wondering and being alone, as Miley Cyrus says, you can buy yourself flowers, you can write your name in the sand, talk to yourself for hours and things that they will never understand. So be good to yourself, love yourself, come back to yourself, and know that it's not you, because if the other person was someone that you really could build a relationship with, it's somebody that you want to be able to speak directly to you. So happy Valentine's Day. Be your own Valentine. Buy yourself flowers, get yourself some chocolate, and don't ghost yourself.